Hey guys, LevelCap here, and welcome to This Week in Gaming. This week, Valve is cracking down on CSGO gambling and Battlefield is getting a TV series. Oh, and I'm not sure if you heard, but some new Pokemon game is out. If you're here for something like FPS or DLC news, just click its category to skip to that section of the video. Mobile users, see the description for timestamps. First up, in the wake of T. Martin's monstrous screw-up with the CSGO gambling website, it seems like Valve have decided to take matters into their own hands before it falls on their heads. In a public statement, Valve announced this week that they are going to start sending notices to the gambling sites requesting they cease operations through Steam and further pursue the matter as necessary. While they did clarify they have nothing to do with these sites on a business or technical support level, they failed to mention why these sites have been allowed to exist for as long as they have, considering they've been breaking Steam's terms of service since day one. I don't think it's Valve's responsibility to regulate online gambling, but the CSGO skin gambling scene has always been dubious at best. Just being associated with it even tangentially puts you at risk for looking like you're up to no good, especially when Valve directly profits from a $2.3 billion gambling economy. They're not necessarily jumping out of their seats to shut this thing down. That's a lot of money that this has made them. But for now, I'd just like to see how serious Valve are about cracking down on gambling and how these sites will adapt to it. It might just be that gambling sites aren't allowed to use the Steam API anymore. Whether or not there's loopholes to get around this has yet to be seen. Either way, it's not a great look for Valve, considering that without question they've been aware of what's been going on for a long time, and only now that things are getting crazy are they actually doing something about it. In other news that's about a video game, but not actually about the game, Battlefield is being turned into a TV show. Academy Award winner Michael Sugar and Vice President of Anonymous Content Ashley Zalta are signed on as executive producers for the Battlefield show. Anonymous Content is one of the production houses behind some of TV's most critically acclaimed shows like True Detective and Mr. Robot. So while we don't know exactly what the show will be about, at the very least we know it's in good hands. Personally, I'd say they're gonna follow in Battlefield 1's footsteps and set it in World War I. From a marketing perspective, it certainly makes sense. Battlefield 1 already has a massive built-in audience months before its release. Although making a TV show that isn't necessarily closely associated with the game but just in name and setting seems like it might create a little bit of confusion and branding issues. That said, maybe it'll actually borrow a lot from the game. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with thematic changes, as the next Battlefield game might not be in World War I. In fact, it probably won't be in World War I. So maybe it'll take more of a True Detective approach where it's an entirely different story and different characters each season. There's plenty of speculation to be had here. It's kind of cool that they're doing it. It's kind of anybody's guess though as to what it's actually going to be about, and is it going to be any good. Then again, that kind of goes for just about any show out there. Also, historically speaking, Battlefield has never been known to have the most compelling or engaging single player storylines with characters that are pretty much forgettable. So they'll kind of have to break away from that Battlefield stigma. Maybe this new game will have an incredibly engaging single player and sort of break that on their own. We'll have to wait and see. In other news, Battlefield 1's beta might actually be starting sometime soon. Sebastian Mortz, one of Battlefield's community managers, announced that the beta would launch sometime this summer in an interview with Twitch streamer Commander Krieger. Nothing else was confirmed aside from the Rush game mode being included in Battlefield 1. Something I'm particularly very curious about is, will the beta just be a repeat of the alpha just for more people and more open, or will it focus on a new map or game mode? There's the new Operations game mode, which looks like it's going to be sort of a staple of Battlefield 1, so that new game mode may carry itself over into all future DLCs and expansions. So if this is going to be as big of a game mode as I think DICE wants it to be, it would make sense to test it out in a beta. Maybe it'll be the same map, but a different game mode. The fact that Rush was mentioned in the same interview might indicate that maybe they're going to try out the new Rush game mode in Battlefield 1. It'll be interesting to see if DICE has taken any sort of creative liberties with how the game modes play out themselves, considering how big of a change they made to Conquest. If you want to know more about those Conquest changes, I made a video on it this week, getting into all the details. You can check it out here. Also, in case you've been living under a rock somewhere, Pokemon Go was released. Surprise! While I'm sure all of you have probably heard about it, you might not have heard what it's doing for Nintendo's stock value. Since the game was released, Nintendo stocks have soared to their highest point since 2011, increasing Nintendo's net value by over 50%. Just to be clear, that's over 11 billion increase practically overnight. That said, it's not clear how much the game is actually making for Nintendo, which is said to be somewhere around $1 to $2 million a day just in the US. And it also has very limited distribution right now, and when it starts coming out in even more countries around the world, I'm sure we'll see those numbers skyrocket. Now, unfortunately, this release has not been without its downsides. Of course, there have been reports of 2 people falling down 90-foot bluffs in pursuit of Pokemon. There have also been reports of players being lured in with game beacons by thieves and robbers looking to steal their belongings. There have even been reports about a girl finding a dead body and players getting arrested for trespassing while chasing down Pokemon. So just a warning for anyone playing the game, watch out for any sort of shady Pokemon stuff going on. As the first augmented reality game to dominate the mobile gaming charts so heavily, it's really the first mobile game to get people outside and interacting with the world in a big way. This is a big deal to me as someone who's into VR. I think Pokemon Go speaks volumes about the potential for phones and smart computers to drive social experienced games. It proves like concepts like the one made by There Is a Canal regarding Battlefield 5 on Google Glass are quickly approaching reality. Obviously, Pokemon Go's success has more to do with Pokemon than anything else, but it proves there's a space for games extending beyond the living room and bridging the gap between games and the real world. It's only a matter of time before airsoft fields are turned into augmented reality battlefields, with everyone using things like VR headsets to transform the real world into Doom's hellish landscapes and other people on the field into demons. And speaking of Doom, this week's patch for the game finally unlocked the Vulkan API, sporting FPS improvements of up to 50% with some GPUs. Vulkan has made well-optimized and visually impressive games run even better than it did before. Vulkan and DirectX 12 both promise these kinds of improvements, but neither of them has seen any serious real-world gaming done on them until now. Doom is the first proof we've gotten that these new APIs will lower the entry barrier to these demanding titles. When you can run a game like Doom on ultra settings at 1440p and get more than 60 FPS on a $200 GPU like the RX 480 or the recently announced $250 GTX 1060, you're talking about a market change in what's considered an adequate GPU for modern games. APIs like Vulkan could be the future for affordable 4K gaming. As it stands, you'll need to buy a top-of-the-line $500 plus GPU to get 30 FPS in some games at 4K. If Vulkan and DirectX 12 can make a $300 GPU offer the same level of performance, it'll be like skipping an entire generation of GPUs, if not more. And speaking of patches, Overwatch's PTR got a massive update this week. In addition to a ton of tweaks and bug fixes, it also includes a new hero, the support sniper Ana. Among the tweaks were buffs to D.Va and Zenyatta that should make them much more viable, and minor changes to several of the other heroes. The new hero Ana is also really interesting. Her bolt-action rifle doubles as her main weapon and a healing gun. We'll have to see how she fits into the balance of the game, but for now it's exciting to have more long-range support characters that also seem decent at taking down enemies. In DLC news, both the massive Apex DLC for Arma 3 and Cunning Stunts update for GTA 5 went live this week. Apex adds an entire new region that's over 100 kilometers squared in size, new weapons, vehicles, and a new co-op campaign. It's been in development for about 2 years, so its release is pretty much the biggest thing that's come out for Arma 3 aside from the base game itself. The Cunning Stunts update for GTA 5 might not be nearly as substantial, but it adds stunt races to GTA Online and it's free for all players. In our last bit of news, Star Wars Battlefront is finally getting an offline mode. Featuring the Walker Assault and Fighter Squadron game modes, Skirmish Mode will let players fight against and alongside AI bots. Skirmish Mode is the first major step Battlefront has taken to get back to its franchise's roots as a large-scale player versus AI game. At launch, the game felt incomplete, and while it's gorgeous, it's always felt very shallow. It definitely seems like DICE is listening to players' feedback and trying to add what players have been asking for since Battlefront launched. Skirmish Mode launches on the 20th. DICE will also be premiering a teaser for the Death Star DLC today during Europe's Star Wars celebration, so be sure to check the description for more info on that. Anyway, that wraps it up for this week in gaming. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments what you think about the idea of the new Battlefield TV show. You think it's going to be good, not so good? What do you think? As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.